We had the Browns media yell at us and say, well, the real reason. Very important moments. This is where we talk about playing the position of quarterback in the NFL and the multi-layered things that go into it.
Before this preseason game even started, Browns media had a narrative ready to go. They said Shedeur Sanders can't separate himself from the quarterback room because of something as small as his cadence. Not his arm, not his reads, his cadence. So what does Shedeur do with that noise? He walks onto the field in a monsoon with none of his starters around him, and he uses his cadence to draw the defense offside not once, but twice, in 2 moments that actually mattered. This isn't a coincidence. This is a quarterback answering his critics with the ball in his hands. Let's set the scene, because context matters here. This was raining so hard before kickoff that everybody watching genuinely thought the game might get delayed or scrapped entirely. Shedeur Sanders was staring down the possibility of not even getting on the field for his final chance to make a statement before roster decisions start piling up. Instead, the weather clears just enough, and Shedeur walks out with almost none of his starters. The only starter next to him is Denzel Boston. Everybody else is backups, a backup offensive line, backup skill players. That's the group he's operating with. And in that environment, with pressure high and margin for error basically zero, Shedeur opens the game with a long, methodical touchdown drive. Patient, decisive, on time with every throw. That alone would be a story, but it's what happens later in the half that actually gets overlooked by most people watching, and it's the part that speaks the loudest about where Shedeur is right now as a quarterback. Remember the cadence criticism. Some analysts, some media voices around the Browns, floated the idea that Shedeur's inability to draw defenders offside with his cadence was somehow a real weakness holding him back. It sounds like a small thing. In the NFL, it isn't. Getting a defense to jump early on a hard count is one of those subtle quarterback skills that separates a guy who's just reciting plays from a guy who's actually running the show. It requires timing, voice inflection, controlling the tempo at the line, and total command of 11 grown men trusting every word coming out of your mouth. It's not flashy. It doesn't show up on a highlight reel the way a deep ball does. But offensive coordinators notice it immediately because it's free yards, and free yards win games. So when the noise started building that Shedeur wasn't doing this well enough, it wasn't really about cadence at all. It was about whether he had full command of an NFL offense yet. That's the real question hiding underneath the surface. And Shedeur decided to answer it in the loudest way possible, not with words, but by drawing the defense offside twice in this exact game.
He just looked that much calm, worked the pocket great, stepped up in the pocket, didn't take sacks. He literally ran and got multiple yards. 2 times he used a wadud. 2 times he used cadences to get free yards. I want to talk about this.
So if cadence was really the problem, why did the defense keep flinching every single time he opened his mouth? Here's what makes this so satisfying to break down. This wasn't just something Shedeur pulled off once and got lucky. According to the breakdown, he had already done this exact thing in joint practice against the Bills before the preseason game even started. That's important because joint practices are essentially a dress rehearsal against a completely different opponent's scheme, different verbiage, different tendencies from the guys lined up across from him. Getting a defense to jump offside in that setting shows it's not a fluke read against one specific team. It's a repeatable skill. Then he takes that exact same tool into the actual preseason game against the Bears and does it again in 2 separate moments that both carried real weight for the outcome of the drive. Think about what that means. This wasn't Shedeur getting one lucky jump from a rookie defensive lineman who wasn't paying attention. This was a quarterback identifying that his voice, his timing, and his command at the line of scrimmage were sharp enough to manipulate a professional defense twice in one half, with a backup offensive line around him and almost no starters to lean on. And this is where the whole narrative around Shedeur starts to fall apart for anyone who is pushing the cadence criticism. If the concern was ever genuinely about whether he could operate an NFL offense at the line of scrimmage, the tape says otherwise. Getting a defense to jump requires the quarterback to sell the count convincingly enough that trained professionals, guys who study cadence tendencies all week, still can't help themselves. It's a trust game, and it's a deception game. Shedeur won it twice. There's a version of this story where a young quarterback just throws the ball well and everybody moves on. That's not the version we're telling here, because the throws were already good last season. What's different now is the operational stuff, the stuff that doesn't trend on social media but absolutely shows up in coaching meetings. Todd Monken and this staff are watching every single one of these reps, and cadence command is exactly the kind of detail that gets discussed behind closed doors long before it ever gets discussed on a broadcast.
Just for Shedeur to now go out there, this is not only did he do it in joint practice, I want y'all to know he did it in joint practice, got the Bills offsides. He takes it to the game, the preseason game, gets them offsides in two very important moments. This is where we talk about playing the the position of quarterback in the NFL and the multi-layered things that go into it.
Now, let's actually rewind and look at what those two moments looked like on the field, because the situations could not have been more different. The first moment happens when Shedeur's offense is backed up deep in their own territory. Anybody who understands football knows this is one of the most stressful spots for a young quarterback to operate from. You're not necessarily trying to march the length of the field. Sometimes you're just trying to survive the possession and flip field position so your defense isn't immediately put in a bad spot. So on this snap, Shedeur uses his cadence at the line, gets the defensive front to jump, and picks up a free defensive zone infraction that hands his offense extra space. The drive eventually doesn't end in points, but that's not really the point. He gave his team a better platform to punt from and kept his own defense out of a short field. That's quarterback maturity. That's understanding the game beyond just stat lines. The second moment is even more meaningful because it comes in a tighter, tougher down and distance later in the game. Shedeur's offense is looking at something like 2nd and 16 or 3rd and 13, the kind of distance that usually kills a drive before it starts. And once again, Shedeur uses his cadence, draws the defense offside, and turns a nearly impossible down into a manageable one. From there, he delivers a tight, accurate throw to Isaiah Bond for a real conversion. That sequence right there, drawing the flag and then finishing the job with an accurate throw, is the entire story of this preseason outing in miniature. It's not just one skill, it's the cadence command setting up the opportunity and the accuracy finishing it. People love to talk about arm talent in this league. They love to talk about mobility, about deep ball touch, about all the things that show up highlight reels. What almost nobody talks about is a young quarterback learning to manipulate a professional defense with nothing but his voice and his timing. That's advanced quarterback play. That's the kind of detail that shows up when a coaching staff is trying to decide who they trust running the show when it actually matters.
Backed up in your own end zone, you get bad field position. Hey, sometimes in the world of football, you're just playing the field position game, especially in the NFL. So, hey, man, you start in your 12-yard line. Maybe we're not going to get a touchdown here, but if you can give my punter some space, we can avoid getting scored on my defense. And he did that on, I think, 3rd and something. Got the backers to jump, or got the linemen to jump. He gets the
This wasn't a backup quarterback trying to survive a preseason game. This was a starter's operation running through a backup's roster spot. Let's zoom out for a second, because the cadence tricks don't exist in a vacuum. They're one piece of a much bigger picture that formed across this entire half. Shedeur finished 9 of 11 passing. That's not a stat line you put up by getting lucky. That's a stat line you put up when you're seeing the field clearly and trusting your reads. He converted a 4th and 2 by staying patient in a collapsing pocket and delivering a strike to the tight end. He hit a 3rd and 15, one of the hardest situations to convert in all of football, with a tight end named Luke Floria running across the field. None of that happens if the quarterback isn't completely locked in mentally. And that's really what the cadence story reveals. It's not just about 2 free first downs. It's about a quarterback who has full command of every layer of the position, the reads, the footwork, the pocket presence, and now, on top of all of that, the pre-snap manipulation that most young quarterbacks don't even attempt until their 2nd or 3rd year in a system. Shedeur is doing it as a second-year player with a backup offensive line around him in the rain, with almost nothing going his way circumstantially. There was even a changed play at the line of scrimmage that turned into a first down. Put that together with the 2 offside tricks, and you start to see a pattern. This isn't a guy just executing what's called from the sideline. This is a quarterback actively managing the game himself, adjusting protections, adjusting plays, and manipulating the defense before the ball is even snapped. That's the entire argument for why the Cadence criticism never held up. The people saying he couldn't separate himself because of small operational details clearly hadn't watched what he was actually doing at the line of scrimmage.
And then on a situation where you had a, what's it called? Actually, was that a bad screen? I forgot if it was the 2-minute drill or if it was the vice versa. Regardless, you're like 2nd and 16, 3rd and 16, or 3rd and 13, whatever. And then you get them to jump again and get another 3 yards, making it a 3rd and manageable. I believe that was on the 2-minute drive, making it 3rd and manageable. Tight throw to Isaiah Bond.
So here's the reality. 2 Cadence tricks, 1 backup offensive line, 9 of 11 passing, and a media narrative that just got dismantled in real time. Let's recap what actually happened here, because it's easy to get lost in the highlight throws and miss the detail that matters most. Shedeur Sanders walked into a game with almost no starters around him, in weather that nearly wiped out the entire outing, carrying a narrative that questioned whether he had full command of an NFL offense at the line of scrimmage. He answered that question twice, drawing the defense offside in joint practice against the Bills and then again in 2 separate moments against the Bears. One flipped the field, one turned a nearly dead down and distance into a live one that ended in a real conversion. Add that to the 4th down conversion, the 3rd and 15 strike, and the 9 of 11 passing mark, and you get a full picture of a quarterback operating at a level that has nothing to do with just talent. This is command. This is preparation. This is a guy who studied exactly what people were saying about him and went out and proved it wrong with his own voice. So here's the real question. Was this Cadence command always there and the Browns just hadn't put him in the right spots to show it? Or is this genuinely new growth from Shedeur heading into a real quarterback competition? Drop your answer below. Do you think this was always in him, or is this a new level he just reached? Smash like and subscribe.